today's closing remarks. It's going to be, I hope not a lecture. Anyway, I just want to say a few words, and then once I finish saying a few words, we're going to eat. Just, there's the food, make yourselves happy, there's the drink, and hopefully you'll come to dance. Because now I'm ready. I'm ready to dance. So what is the order? Just listen, just give me your ears. Short time, it won't be a keynote. But let's do all these nice things, pay the bills and stuff, and then and then have fun. Just dance. Look, we don't have a great speaker, but we have music. Anyway, so what I wanted to say in my closing remarks: 6 mountains on her back, rethinking African feminism. Nobody has told me what. Charlene, Tando, at the back there, did anyone come to you and see what the mistake is? Because I have the present. No. So I still have the present. So in an article by Nigerian feminist Malaro Gundipe, she says, or she quotes the Chinese philosopher Mao Zedong, who said that the Chinese man had 3 mountains on his back to carry: oppression from outside. By this, he was referring to the fact that at certain points in history, China was colonized. The second mountain is heritage of tradition, and the third is his backwardness because of poverty and ignorance. But he added that the Chinese man had 1 additional mountain to climb. The Chinese woman had 1 additional mountain to climb: the Chinese man. Molora Ogundipe Leslie extends on this metaphor by arguing that women in Africa have to carry 2 extra mountains on their backs: her class or her race, and herself. So for this colloquium, some of you are familiar with the various strands of African feminism. But I hope that the colloquium has been an opportunity for us to focus on questions of thinking, knowing, and authority in relation to experiences in or and out of spaces in the university, and in relation to knowledge production, as Danai eloquently told us yesterday. In thinking or rethinking, we begin to understand that African feminisms are polyvocal. There's no one way to think of them, but many ways that help us to think through, whether it's in the creative arts, literary studies, economics, labor, the law, medicine, etc. Or what Charlene and others have been saying throughout the colloquium is that we can be creative in our theorization, and that creativity is open-ended. And no, again, this is not a keynote address, this is not a plenary session of one. But I would like to end by quoting extensively from Nigerian feminist Obiola Naimeka. And she says, and most of you who've read Nego-Feminism know this, but I love this passage so much because it informs the way I think. On the eve of her departure for graduate studies, her great uncle cautioned her. "My daughter," he said, "when you go to Obodo or Yibo, the land of white people, walk like the chameleon." According to her great uncle, the chameleon is an interesting animal to watch. As it walks, it keeps its head straight, but looks in different directions. It does not deviate from its goal and grows wiser through the knowledge gleaned from different perspectives it absorbs along the way. If it sees prey, it does not jump on it immediately. First, it throws out its stump. If nothing happens to its stump, it moves ahead and grabs the prey. The chameleon is cautious. When the chameleon comes into a new environment, it takes the color of the environment without taking over. The chameleon adapts without imposing itself. We need to walk like the chameleon, goal-orientated, cautious, accommodating, adaptable, and open to diverse views. I find this metaphor useful to reflect on my feminist journey. In reflecting on this journey, one has to be Janus-faced, looking back to see where one has come from and forward to think of new ways of understanding African feminisms. To this end, we need to expose ourselves to new ideas and perspectives on various feminist aspects. Our journeys may be cautious, but they should also be goal-orientated, accommodating, adaptable, and open to diverse views. And now I would like to pay the bills or to give shout-outs to everybody who has helped in making this colloquium what it is. So the first group of people is Art on Our Mind. This is Charlene's group. The NRF, of course, we know what the NRF does for us, most of us. The National Arts Council, the Andrew Mellon Foundation, UKAPI, and if anyone knows what UKAPI is, except UKAPI might, except if you're affiliated to UKAPI, then you might get the present. Finding Africa, Rhodes University, the Fine Arts Department, especially the head of department, Dominic, Moira, Rat and Punzi, the English department, my head of department, Sue, who is not here, Sibokazi, Tandy, and my colleagues who have allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do, with no questions asked. The research office, especially Jane and Taryn, especially Taryn for making sure that we ate, and we ate well. Maybe not on time, not maybe, but we ate. The Kura Collective,
Karu.
The Karu, what is the second one? I can't see.
Karu Collective. Yeah.
Tato and Gaba and Lita for helping to put up all the exhibition. I mean, that I saw that space one day, the next day it was transformed. Mosa, Capello, Pura, Kate and Taylor for all the videography and audio stuff. We are going to be trending on YouTube. We might even go viral. Charlene's student volunteers, Carol, Starry, Annalise, North Tobacco. Yeah, there you are. And the people I call the UKAPI squad. Nick, Jenny, Jordan, Tinika, and Martin. That you will now have a squad, the AOLM squad. Bev, Bootle, I mean, you've seen them running around. Tyler, Kate, and Palesa. Fuad, I don't know what we would have done without you. Fuad and if you look at the posters, he designed our logo, but the posters themselves were designed by Bootle. And Taylor. And I mean, yeah, I think good things are going to happen out of that exhibition. So thank you so much for that. And then the generosity of our invited guests. Danai for a fabulous intellectual keynote. You can hear, I'm already quoting from you. And I'm sure that most of the students who attended, most of us who attended, something in your keynote resonated with different people at different levels. So I think you have levels up yourself. So thank you so much, Dana. Betty, Nilika, Pumla, Yvette, and Sipokazi in absentia. And what I mean by their generosity, let me tell you this story. I have to say, Pumla, I have to tell this story. Yesterday, Pumla, who is Erin? Who is Erin? I want to see this Erin. I said, what do you mean, Erin? I've seen everybody. I have to see Erin. I said, well, she's wearing sandals. Who is Pumla? Until I said, find someone else. Ask who Erin. Erin, we would not leave until we saw you start breaking cups. And that was where is she? I'm like, I don't know. So, I mean, and that's what I talk about, the generosity. She wanted to make sure that everyone, as she said, I'm a fair person. I'm like, okay, fine. Everyone, she saw everyone's product. So it's that generosity. I mean, the input they gave in all the sessions, you are all privileged to have had them. This was Tando's idea. I cannot take any credit for this idea. Tando came to me last year and said that she was thinking about this, and then 1, 2, 3, we had 43 abstracts. And I'm sitting there thinking, what is this? I was completely overwhelmed. Between Charlene and Tando, they were like, no, just calm down, calm down. But me, you know, I'm called, my colleague, my ex-colleague from Stellenbosch in French, Sean Felyun, calls me the chief whip. So I was cracking that whip all the time. Where's the money going to come from? What are we going to do? So I was so, and this is expensive, too much food, no flowers, no. And so in all that, as they say in Uganda, in all that kavuyo, in all that chaos, in all of that, Charlene was the calm person. Charlene was so calm and collected, and she just looked at me, and she said, it's all right. So-and-so has put up, it's all right. It's all right. They thought it's all right. It's fine. And I was like, okay. So part of what Charlene became was my therapist, but she also became our blesser. So yesterday when you had no food, and when all this was happening, and like people are standing, there's no food, there's no this, there's no that, she said, hey, then we'll just add, we'll pay for all of this. Today, look at you, you're all sitting there, gaps, we're going to have a wonderful time. And so, yeah, and I appreciate all that she did. And while we were planning, eventually, at the beginning, Charlene had this wish list of hers. And I looked at what she called her wet dream. I looked at it and I said, yeah, right. And rolled my eyes this side. She sent out emails and everyone said yes, except for Desiree, who is teaching at the moment in South America. And so, apart from being my therapist, apart from being our blesser, I say, Charlene has some kind of muti.
They're not last night, yeah?
And so, in what has been one of Charlene's most difficult weeks, she has been here with all that zen and calmness. And there's no way that I would have chaired that session that she chaired yesterday. That was absolutely brilliant. There was no way, no how I could have done that. So for me, Charlene is phenomenal. I'm truly humbled to have worked with her on this project. And I'm inspired by her. The conference next year, inshallah, Charlene already has big dreams. And this time, I'm allowing myself to dream with her. And so to everyone else who has come here, to students, to anyone who sent their abstract, to come and participate, we appreciate all that you've done. And we say asante sana, mwebale nnyo, mwakoze cyane, kielebuha, shukran, thank you, Nkosi Kakulu, for your participation, for being part of this event, for making it happen. As my students will say, these 2 days have been lit. Wow. I hope you haven't caught feelings, but you've caught knowledge. I hope you've caught knowledge, not feelings. So please enjoy yourselves. It's been our pleasure to host you. It's been our pleasure to be involved in this. And we hope you have a good time and go back and tell people, like, yeah, there are things happening at Rhodes.
You can call me Betty.
Yes. Betty, I'd like to know from you 3 questions. First question is, if you could, I'm responding to last night's conversation
Yes.
around the notion of lived experience is something that was strongly echoed.
Yes.
And I'm interested in your thoughts on how you see these platforms as an intersection of generations of these lived experience. If you can
Yes.
expand on that a little bit.
Yes. Yes, thank you for that. I saw this happening all the time with the people of my generation and interacting with the younger ones. And for me, it's been most encouraging to see the way in which the younger ones are understanding and using the language of feminism and critiquing it as well, and finding new ways in this new time. I have had decades of thinking through and living through feminisms and critiquing it, but I see a new energy in this new moment, as it were. And I think what happened at the conference was a kind of, we talked of intersection a lot, intersection of generations and are listening to one another. So it's not as if people come with more experience because they're older, but we're all there in many ways, intersecting, understanding, sharing, thinking together and critiquing together. That kind of intergenerational mix is just invaluable. It's priceless. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree totally.
Not totally.
And I think it expands back to my second question around
And I myself have gone through like the different stages
Yes.
of, thinking through. I embody those intergenerations, if you like, now as a grandmother.
Yeah. And it comes back to extending on this conversation between generations. It comes back to the idea of naming. I mean, this has become something so topical lately
Yes.
because of Feast Must Fall,
Yes.
Rose Must Fall as
Yes.
well. In relation to what is this desire towards the naming, and I say this relating to the new terms
Yes.
now, how woman is spelled.
Yes.
We've seen with the entire colloquium.
Yes.
Concepts like stewardyism,
Yes.
concepts like womanism,
Yes.
more specifically here is African feminism.
Yeah.
Where are we leading to with these specificities?
Yeah. That's a good question because language is not fixed. We inherit language. There's a certain kind of convention and that comes with our received language. But language is dynamic. And language also comes with ideology. It depicts and represents a certain understanding of the world and a worldview. And we then slowly begin, as we evolve, to realize that that language isn't sufficient. It doesn't do justice to how we want to interpret the world, how we want to represent the world, how we want to read the world. And so we have to invent new words, new ideas, and new ways of representing the world. And that's why it's imperative that you create new words. We often think that the received language is the correct language, without understanding that words are constantly being added to our storehouse of knowledge. And of course, language comes with a certain imperialism, a certain colonialism in the broadest and the narrowest sense of the word. And how can we liberate language? And the problem and the challenge is we use language to do that. And so this is why sometimes you have to use mediums outside language. Apart from silence, music, and the way in which poetry as well works through words and alongside words and outside words to capture meaning. It's just such a creative, and art as well, which we had.
Yes.
All of this
spoken about art.
Yeah, all of this is an attempt to depict and represent truths that are not there but are emerging, that are evolving, that we are creating. And feminism's about that. And the struggle and the challenge is always to find new words and new language because the old words don't contain the meanings we want to convey, and we're creating new meanings and new understandings. But it's also a collective exercise. We do this together, and we need to find a way of doing that constantly.
Hence your word, currently known as. Which I thought, it echoes this idea of language and its evolution.
Yes.
On your departing words around your overview of the whole colloquium.
I'm not departing, I'm staying. No, it's just been a most exhilarating experience. You know, for me, I always appreciated art, but almost like as an onlooker, you know. My field is like literature and words. I love art. I always am on a journey appreciating it. But this conference really highlighted the way, again, intersection, the way in which everything intersects. If only everyone could see, you know, we talk of disciplines and compartments and ghettos in the humanities and in disciplines and in knowledge generally. If only we can see how we are so interconnected in the way we think, with science, with the humanities, art and poetry and literature. All of this is in many ways merging and coalescing and moving apart and coming together to understand this world we live in and to make sense of the world, but also to change the world. And for me, this conference, if ever there was an attempt to have that kind of intersection among the different expressions, this was dramatizing it and proving it. It was just so creative. This is why I'm sorry in a way the scientists were not here, more of the people from outside, because we talked about the role of the imagination. That was central, and creative theorizing and lived experience. That's not something only people in the art world do, in the fine art world do, or people in poetry. It's something that we do across the board. And what does it mean to be knowledge producers? We talk about mode 1 knowledge, mode 2 knowledge, and so on, in the universities and outside. What does it mean when we use different mediums and different ways of thinking and being? So the whole notion of being is part of knowing, rather than separating being and knowing. This conference, in many ways, overtly by what we said, but also implicitly, there was the subtext, as it were, of combining, connecting. Didn't you find that?
Absolutely.
It was just amazing.
What you're mentioning around other disciplines and fields, and people who could have been part of this conversation, they were not excluded from the conversations that were happening. There was a lot of, especially as you say, some ways of knowing, ways of experiencing, lived experiences. And they're calling for, I think there was a paper that actually started to touch on how, you know, the conversations do expand to scientific knowledge. And these things inform each other so much. But when we discuss them in terms of our disciplines, they seem to have this divide. But it is essentially they are part of each other. What informs medicine is the experiences of people.
And the body. And feminism is about the body. Art is about the body. And about the way in which you can use any entry point to then find all the connections. And it's the most exciting thing that we can then do. And the way in which we can interact and have conversations with different ways of knowing. And find that they all actually they intermingle and they're interwoven. And this conference did that.
And thank you so much for being so generous. It's really pressed on an important buttons. Like I said, for the first question, the fact that you can speak to these different generations and speak to these different moments. It's so informative and it speaks so directly responses that have been happening in the academic space today, young people are needing that kind of generosity of time for people who can speak to experience.
And I learned a lot. And you know, the different spaces, as I said earlier on, the sacred, the secular, all these compartments, they all are intertwined. And it's the same in the world of knowledge and thinking. And for me, that's where the challenge and the joy of it is.
Yes. Joy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alright, I've got 3 questions for you. The first question, I'm interested in your opinion around what has been quite echoed throughout the colloquium around intersections. And one particular intersection that I've observed is generational intersections, and what you think such a platform allows and how that has been articulated in your experience.
No, it's really complex. I think at a university setting where there are these sort of like hierarchies and just like by virtue of the university itself, or at least how we understand it in this current moment, there's this sort of like hegemonic power that is existent and embodied through like the lecturer who has knowledge and information, and this like this Freudian like, you know, banking model of like, yeah, you guys are students, who are mostly, for the most part, like younger, right, with the exception of a few. So it's interesting to challenge that in this setting, and I think the symposium did that in a way, because you do have sort of like presenters like Beverly, right, who's a student, but sort of like elder generation, and she also mentions that in her talk, right, and then you have like younger students, and all of that being given credence and importance with your Pumla Kolas and your, you know, Yvette Abrams and all of these people who've written like immense scholarships, like the words getting like, you know, quoted left, right, and center. But somehow in that same space, these other knowledges are also important. And I think also like that intersectionality generationally was also happening in the exhibition, right? Because we have like sort of like more later career exhibition, like artists, like either, you know, who've been in the game, doing artist photo fest, whatever, like just present with younger artists, as well as student work as well. So I think that for me was really beautiful to just look at what women are experiencing at different age levels. And then to think about ideas of even like sexuality, for example, because older women are not supposed to be sexual, right? They're just supposed to be drinking tea. But like the idea is that actually you can have like this 60, 70-year-old sexual being.
Yes. Talking about so openly.
Yes. So I really appreciated that. I thought that was really exciting for me.
I mean, I suppose it leads back to my question, the second question around this, the desire to be specific. There's a call, and even with language now, there's this, the way woman is spelled is taking on a different kind of vocabulary, right? And one would say an accent in a way. And maybe I should tailor that question and say, how is that coming through your experience of exhibition, since you've made the exhibition available for this colloquium? You know, is the exhibition also tapping into the specificities of language, African feminism, and in what way? How does it design? Where is the specificity leading us to?
It's kind of complex because I feel like I've been really meditating on this idea of creativity within itself being a theorization, right? And so the walls, and I've been thinking about my own curatorial practice and like the conversations that I want to have. So in this platform of like words and performance of those words, I was thinking, how do these artists, they're almost like references, right? In this like text. So the gallery becomes a text. And these artists and their voices are able to sort of like shape and build and you know, create what the body and the flesh needs and the blood of this text, but the scaffolding to really like the actual, like the narrative, I suppose. So I say that because I think sometimes we can't name things, but the visual or this allows us to do that, you know? Like after Heidi's performance, for example, people, like a lot of people in the room were just sort of like stunned. And someone said to me, they were like, I don't have words for this. And sometimes it's okay to just sit with that and to sit with another language that we're creating of just silence maybe, you know, or performance or movement, and looking at the body itself as a language, and being textual. Because as we know, like, you know, a black body entering into a white space already disrupts stuff. So, yeah, I don't know about naming, because I'm also just like, I don't know, it's an interesting thing that I'm still sort of like thinking about and meditating upon, and just trying to find words.
But what I'm getting in the sense you're saying is that the naming in itself, not so textually, is happening in the exhibition.
Yeah.
And I think that's fundamentally again like where the suppose cross-pollination is happening between the matter and the visual, which is so echoed in the program itself. And maybe on the last question, if you can give us some comments about your thoughts of the program in general.
I really enjoyed it. It was really fantastic because it felt anti-symposium, anti-colloquium at some point, you know, because it had this sort of relaxed idea about it, which is so, like most symposiums and colloquiums that I've been to are so phallic, and then just sort of like, you know, everything is like, yeah, I am the one with knowledge, and the knowledge needs to be articulated in this particular kind of way, and references to these scholars. But it felt like, you know, home and joy and love, and those things could be theorized. Affect, you know, and I think Danai, you really opened it up and really sort of set the tone in that way, you know, just sort of like, how can this also be important, and how do we center that, you know, so that these spaces that we come to really become something that's empowering and lifting, and not violent, you know, which I think often when I enter a lot of these spaces, like there's so much like inadequacy that I feel like, oh, am I speaking academies, you know, like am I articulating in the right way, whatever right is, you know, how should I act? And I've really tried to eliminate the word should from my vocabulary, right? But like here, it really feels like you can just be. And I think it fits nicely in terms of like the exhibition itself, in terms of like being, you know, being here. You know, whilst we're thinking about these ideas of becoming or whatever else, like we can just be here as self, in our complexity, in our shit, in our like love, in our joy, in our dancing, in our poetry, and in text, you know, however that text manifests. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been empowering, it's been lifting, it's been challenging at times, but in a really good way, because, you know, we all have to go to those places that are uncomfortable.